The following is a presentation of the Mat Talk Podcast Network.
You are now tuned into the PA Power Podcast, College Edition, featuring Rob Waltko and Joe Youngblood. PA Power Wrestling. Pennsylvania is wrestling.
Fans, here we are again, another week. Welcome to the Open Room with Rob and Joe. This week we're going to, again, talk about a few matches that took place, preview a few others, and special guests coming on later in the podcast. We got the Hidlay brothers, Hammers from Mifflin County, coming on. And if their Twitter activity is any indication of what we're going to get, Rob, it's going to be pretty interesting.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to talking to those two. They're pretty funny on Twitter, even when I don't get the jokes. Just their sense of humor, it makes me laugh. And they're just beasts, man. I've always been a fan of those guys. Neither were like super studs as freshmen in high school, and they just continually got better, which I always respected.
So, Rob, let's start us off. Let's talk about what went down over the weekend. Yeah,
so a couple individual results I want to touch on right away. Two of them in that VT match. Max Dean ended up beating up Zavatsky 9-0, and Chaz Tucker was a winner 8-3 over Corbin Myers. Tucker now ranked 11th, Myers 13th or 12th rather. Both those kind of surprised me. I mean, Dean kind of took it too. Dean got beat up pretty badly by Zavatsky out in Vegas. Did you see either of these ones coming?
No, Rob, I didn't. And, truth be told, going on past performance, like you said with Vegas, I wouldn't say I thought I was in the bag, but I don't know. It shocked me to see the 8-0 put up by Dean, and just kind of dumbfounded by it. You watching it back, Rob, what did you see? Like what maybe in your opinion led to that happening and Zavatsky losing 8-0?
I think the big thing with Dean is you don't want him to score early, because once he gets on top of you and throws in that high thigh, he could beat you up pretty bad. And once he rode Zavatsky that whole period, Zavatsky just looked like he was out of juice. And then, from there, Dean kind of picked his spots and just kind of kept building from there. So, I mean, heck of a win for Dean. Didn't see that coming. Zavatsky been wrestling really well. But, yeah, it should be interesting to see. I know that 184 right now, 2 through 12, is just an absolute mess. I saw Andrew Spay tweet about it, and he was like, anyone want to help me with this? And I looked at it, and I thought, yeah, good luck with that, buddy. And then the same thing for Myers. He just looked flat versus Tucker. Not a result that I necessarily expected, but Myers really hasn't been great since getting that win versus Philippi. So we'll see. I mean, that might have been the outlier for him, but I'm not sure what to expect with him. They ended up bouncing back pretty strong. Myers ended up beating Louis Hayes the next night. Zavatsky beat up on Drew Pack, another PA guy from Virginia. Some other results from that duel. Mitch Moore, he actually teched Sam Krivis. And Makai Lewis beat up on Cam Coy. That Moore one surprised me. Krivis, started the year pretty hot. I think was beating Moore at the Virginia duels, and Moore threw him and pinned him. But that's not an encouraging result to get teched by a true freshman. I mean, what are your projections on where Krivis is? I mean, he should get to the tournament. Do you think he has any chance to place?
Right now, no. It's like you get on a roller coaster with him. There's some highs and there's some low lows, and this is definitely the lowest of lows, I think, for his season up to this point. Maybe it was just a bad match.
No, that's a tough one to live down. I mean, it happens. Guys get sick, hurt, whatever. But I was a little bit surprised by that. Changing gears, jumping on the Hawkeyes. They had a nice weekend. At least the PA guys did. Spencer Lee beat up on Elijah Oliver. DeSanto teched Paul Conrath. They both beat their opponents from Wisconsin pretty handily. Caleb Young didn't wrestle versus Indiana, but ended up beating Wisconsin's guy 11-2, Garrett Modal. But what I wanted to talk about was Max Murren. He ended up getting pinned by Kyle Lugs from Indiana and then did not wrestle versus Wisconsin. Now, Murren is the probable starter versus Oklahoma State, but he is just really, really struggling since the Midlands. How much of that do you think is mental, Joe? Because I think maybe that grind's getting to him, or just some of his tight losses. He kind of blew a fuse a little bit, but that loss to Indiana really surprised me.
I think it's a lot mental. I think what really seals it for me, and I'm going to go back to about 3 weeks ago, that loss to Mikey Carr, having that win, that marquee win over a top 10 opponent, that could have been one of those matches that turned the corner for him, gives him a shot in the arm moving towards the end of the season, and to lose it in the fashion in which he lost it, you kind of saw, he came unraveled, and we talked about it already in prior podcasts. Just came undone at the end there, and I don't think he's been right since that. Again, his first year in the lineup, there's going to be some ups and downs, but that one, I think, really took any wind out of his sails that he had. He's dead in the water right now, and he's going to have to find his way to get back to where he was earlier in the season, where he was winning matches on a consistent basis over top level competition.
Yeah, you said it. I think we texted that night about him losing to Carr, and we're like, why is he crying? Like, why is he so emotional? And maybe that was just a breaking point for him. At this point, I think he has his bid pretty much locked up. But, if he doesn't improve, I don't see him making much of a splash at Nationals. But, he'll have his chance this weekend, wrestling Cade Brock, who hasn't been as up and down as him, but, certainly is taking some losses this year where you're a little bit surprised or maybe just didn't have performances that you expected. Some other individual bouts, Hayden Hidlay went out and beat Josh McClure 18-6. Hidlay looks like he's full steam ahead. He's really getting back on track, and we'll have to talk to him about maybe some of those early season losses and maybe what went wrong or what's going right at this time. But he looks like he's full form. Jake Woodley, huge win for him. Huge 2 wins. He beat McLaughlin from Air Force, then beat number 14 Josh Hokett from Fresno State 3-1. That's really the first kind of marquee win for Jake this year. He's been close with a few of these guys, but that's the big one. He really needed that, and it was fun to watch. He kind of picked his spots. He couldn't finish a few times, but kept shooting and getting the legs and finishing. So hats off to him. Joe, this pit match was a lot closer than I expected, 20-19 over Duke. The big match for me that really stood out there was Alex Shank beating Kellen Stout 4-2. Stout's a guy that I've been pretty high on the last few weeks. Did you think Duke was going to push them that hard? Because I really didn't.
Again, not to agree with you, I didn't see it either. I kind of had Pitt in that top half of the ACC, and I just didn't think Duke had the firepower to hang with them. But then you look at and they win 2019, Rob. Let's put in perspective. Philippi got a forfeit too. That was probably maybe something they weren't accounting for. If Duke is able to put someone out there that doesn't get pinned or teched, Duke wins that match. So, in that regard, I think they did more than push them. If you count up and looking at the box score here, they won 5. They split it 5-5. I think Duke just came ready to wrestle.
Yeah, they certainly were on their A game, and they're a well-coached team. But I thought Pitt would handle them a little easier. But Pitt's entitled to have a bad match here and there.
Yeah, and again, looking at that match, we talked a little bit about Greg Harvey last week. Again, I'm going to give him bring it up. He wrestled Matt Feinsilver from Duke, ranked 16th, wrestled him tough, loss and sudden victory. So again, tip my cap to Harvey, wrestling well at this point of the season. Maybe thinking there's a outside shot at doing something in that ACC tournament. We'll have to see. But it's nice to see that.
I think he'll qualify.
PA guy wrestling well at this point.
No, Harvey's been he's kind of like the epitome of what Pitt is right now. Just a tough team that's winning close matches. And he epitomizes that. So hats off to him. I need to shout out my guy Scotty Stossel. Was a 5-4 winner over Illinois. North Allegheny had a good weekend. Stossel got his first win officially for Penn State. Woodley went 2-0. Nick Lee, he ended up wrestling Abdullah Asaf from Illinois. Carr did not show up. I'm not sure if he's injured, sick, or what, but disappointing. I think that was a match I really wanted to watch this weekend. Rounding out some other box scores, Millersville, shout out to friend of the program, Kerry Regner. 22-21 win over Franklin and Marshall. Penn State over Michigan State 37-10. Binghamton 25, Bucknell 17. Lehigh 28-6. It looks like Chris Weiler's locked down that spot. Cal Baptist over Drexel 19-16 was a bit of a shocker, and then Cal Baptist turns around, they get shut out by Penn the next day, 39-0. So, maybe not Drexel's best effort, but like we said about Pitt, everyone's entitled to a bad match here or there. Joe, any of those scores jump off at you?
Well, yeah, that Cal Baptist one does. I just don't know what to think of it.
It's been a weird year for Drexel.
We were both real high on them coming into the season, having Acevedo on the podcast and just listening to him talk about what the great things they're doing down at Drexel. And I don't think it's been the season that I thought it was going to be, and obviously it's probably not the season they thought it was going to be. I want to mention one thing. We went over Penn State. I want to bring up. You look now. There's a little bit more clarity at 165. Something we talked about last week. Marinelli beating Wick again. I know they're neither of those Pennsylvania guys, but it sets up argument over who's going to get that one seed between Marinelli and Vincenzo Joseph going into Big Tens, and it's going to be huge to stay away from Wick on the other side. Just thrown out there, Rob. What are your thoughts now that Marinelli beat Wick again? I
think Marinelli's the one. If last year's results don't count, he should be. Just better wins in my book, and then Chenzo should be the 2. Wick has 2 losses, but I haven't looked at it close enough. Is there any possibility that Wick goes to 4 with his 2 losses? Do Mesa or White? Do either of them just have one? No, Mesa or White lost to Marinelli, Wick, and Vincenzo. I'd have to look at Mesa. Maybe he only has 1 loss. That'd be crazy if he slipped in the 3 and Wick's the 4. It's kind of a moot point.
Yeah, just thought I'd bring that up, seeing that the scores and seeing the match with Marinelli and Wick over the weekend. Maybe a little clarity, but it's still a little foggy too. Depending on, it's going to be interesting to see how the seeding committee breaks that tie.
Best rivalry in wrestling. Let's jump into it. Iowa, Oklahoma State this weekend. The big ones, 125, 133. You have Lee versus Piccininni. Lee's 2-0 versus him. Last year in the duel, it was close. Lee jumped out to a big lead. Piccininni stormed back. And then Lee he embarrassed him at Nationals. Which version of Lee are we seeing on Sunday, or do we see something completely different?
That is the question, that $1 million question that we are trying to figure out, and which version of Spencer Lee we're going to see. I think we're going to see Spencer Lee on his game, and I feel like I've said this before and not seen it. But I honestly believe we'll see Spencer Lee on his game and take it to Piccininni. If he's close to what he normally is, and talking about Spencer Lee, it's not going to be a match. And I see somewhere in the realm of 10-4, 12-4 in favor of Spencer Lee.
I don't know, man. I don't know what to expect. If Lee... if he wrestles like he did versus Moisey, he's going to keep coming. This could be tight, but the Lee we saw last March beats anyone, hands down, at 125, and maybe beats anyone at 133. So it'll be interesting. Tom Brands was talking. I saw an interview today where he was saying this should be on ESPN1 prime time. So I hope that means that both teams are coming out full blast with their starting lineups. Everyone's healthy. Everyone's ready to go, because if it is, there's 10 really, really competitive matches here. The other one people are really talking about is 33, DeSanto Fix. I don't know, man. I don't see Fix kind of getting worn down by DeSanto, but this could be a dogfight. What do you think on this one, Joe? Who do you like, and do you see it being a shootout or a little bit more tactical?
Well, the last time the hype machine got going over a Daton Fix match, and speaking of Suriano, it was anything but. Rob, I'm going out on a limb here, and I can't believe I'm saying it. I'm going DeSanto in this match. I picked against him, and all he's done is made me look dumb. And believe me, I do a good enough job of that on my own on a regular basis, and I don't need him doing it anymore. So I'm getting on with him, and I'm saying DeSanto wins in a scrap. Similar to him beating Suriano, a takedown late, and it's going to be his pace is going to be the difference. His relentless pace. I don't think he's going to wear down Fix. I just think his pace is just going to just be too much for too long. There's going to be a breakdown somewhere with Fix that he's going to take advantage of it. I'm going to say he wins 5-4.
I'm going to go with Fix 8-5. I think there's going to be a lot of points on the board. I think Fix will get ahead early. DeSanto, he'll sneak one or two in there, but Fix he'll make DeSanto pay for his mistakes. I think he'll not win comfortably, but he'll score when he needs to. You got Cade Brock versus Max Murren here. Murren's kind of a tough matchup for Brock. If he's on his A game, he's very physical, stays in your face. Brock will have those mental lapses sometimes. I'm putting Murren. I'm giving him the win here. I think he turns his season around this weekend with the win over Cade Brock. Am I crazy for saying that, Joe, or are you seeing what I'm seeing?
This is Murren's Alamo here. He's protecting everything, and probably including his starting spot at this point, might be riding on this match. And it's unfortunate to say that it's going to be, I don't know. I have to imagine staff at Iowa is going to give Turk a long, hard look. I think he's going to circle the wagons like you and get it done at this weekend. So
the one thing with Turk that hurts him is the RPI and the coaches ranking, right? So when you kind of get that spot like Murren has locked in, it's tough to yank that guy out sometimes just because you don't want to lose that spot. Murren would have to, or Turk rather, would essentially have to upset someone at the Big Ten to get in. So unless Murren really falls apart or Turk's really looking on fire, which he really didn't on Sunday, I think Murren is probably his spot. Like I said, unless he's completely falling apart. But rather than guess, I'd love to see him go out here and get a win. You're going to see Wyatt Sheets from Oklahoma State taking on Caleb Young, more than likely. He's their 57. I like Young in that match. And then we might see Dakota Gear. We don't know what Oklahoma State's doing with their lineup. It looks like Weigel took over that 97 spot. Joe Smith's going to at least attempt to go to 65. Jacoby Smith has the option to go to 74 based on his descent. And I think Gear might be the odd man out, at least for now. But anything else from this dual meet that really jumps off the page at you, Joe?
I'm excited for the heavyweight match. White and Stoll. I think it's going to be a good match. And you're going to see just how good I think White is. White turned a lot of heads when he beat Kassar in the manner in which he beat Kassar. Stoll's a different type of wrestler, much bigger, presents a different set of problems. But I'm thinking that's going to be a good match, and White's going to come out on top, in my opinion. Who do you have winning the dual meet overall?
I was thinking about this earlier today. I think Oklahoma State wins. I think they win 133, 149, 174, 84, 97 heavyweight. Because I got White winning. So that's 6 matches. But it could turn on its head, right? If Lugo gets a win, if Lee gets a fall, which he's always dangerous to do, there's a ton of toss-ups in this match. If Murren loses, it could get really ugly for Iowa too. But I'm going to take Oklahoma State at home. I think Gallagher-Iba is going to be the difference, and they're going to get the win. What about you, Joe?
I'm going to go with Pennsylvania West or Midwest at that. I think Lee's going to garner bonus points. Again, DeSanto winning at 33, Murren winning at 41. Right out the gate, they're going to win the first 3, possibly 4. I would say 49 can be tossed up with Lugo and Gefeller. And, 57, Iowa wins. 65 goes to Iowa, Marinelli. 74, goes back to Oklahoma State. 84, Oklahoma State. 97 goes to Okie State. And I'm sorry, Iowa. My bad on that. And then, Sam Stoll losing at heavyweight. So, I have it 640 other way in favor of the Hawkeyes. I think they'll go into Gallagher-Iba Arena, steal one from John Smith and the boys.
I love this dual meet this late in the season. A lot of times it's earlier, like when they wrestle, or at least when they wrestled outside. I don't know if it's typically earlier, not off the top of my head. But I'm not going to be able to watch it live, unfortunately. I'm going to be coaching our youth team up in Edinburgh. I'm going to come back and I'm going to watch the whole thing for sure. It's just a great dual meet. Every match is going to be competitive. So, Joe, what do you think we get on the phone with the brothers now?
All right, join on the line right now. We have a special treat for all the PA Power Wrestling fans. We have Hayden and Trent Hidlay from the NC State Wolfpack. Guys, thanks for taking some time out to come on together. This is a first for us getting two guests on scheduled. We had a little bit earlier podcast where we had a guest come on unexpectedly, but this was the first time we're venturing to do this. So guys, thanks. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, this is actually a first for us too. We're glad we're going to be able to be on here together. Yeah. Thanks a lot for having us. We're looking forward to having a good time.
Hey, so jumping into the first question, both of you guys obviously committed to North Carolina State, but I think they were like different trajectories. So when Hayden committed, they were a bit of an unknown, so to speak, and then when Trent committed, they were starting to turn into more of a perennial powerhouse. I guess each of you, tell us like what drew you to NC State, or when did you decide that was the place to be, and why was that?
I guess I'll start out just because I was the first to commit. I started to catch wind of NC State, I think, my sophomore year in high school. I actually went out to nationals when it was in Oklahoma City, and I got to see Gwiz go on his national championship run. And I got to see a couple other guys that fought really hard for that team out in nationals. And, they piqued my interest just because I liked their style of wrestling. And, watching Gwiz win was a whole lot of fun for me. And so I started to kind of look more into NC State, and their assistant at the time, Frank Beasley, had a Lewistown connection. He married Lindsay Snyder, who was originally from Lewistown, and so he was in the area often, and I formed a good relationship with him. And so, he basically sold me on the program, I think, and, he did a really good job of conveying their message and how they wanted me to be at the center of it all. And I think that was kind of different from the other schools I was being recruited by. I think they laid it all out there for me and basically said, you're going to be our guy, and we want to, kind of focus the program around you and a few other guys. And, that was just really convincing to me. And so I committed pretty early, probably in the winter of my junior year, just because I think at that point I knew that I belonged here.
Yeah, for me, obviously, it was a little different. I saw the process early in high school of Hayden being recruited by NC State, and I obviously always had that a little bit of background with that. But I wanted to make sure going into my junior, senior years that, I was looking at schools that I could go to that were for me, and a place I could see myself thriving and win an NCAA title. And my recruitment process was kind of tough for me because I was being kind of pulled in a lot of different directions. I had a lot of great schools, and I got to see a lot of great campuses and staffs and teams. But when it boiled down to it, I just felt really comfortable with NC State, and I love the coaching staff down here, and they, the style of wrestling that they teach and the lifestyle that they preach is something that was really attractive to me, and I know it was really attractive to Hayden being recruited as well. And when it came down to it, I think the pluses and minuses were always in favor of NC State for me. And towards my senior year, I saw myself going there and winning multiple national titles and helping the team win an NCAA title. And that's where I knew my heart was, and I wanted to. I was excited to commit there, and everything's been great so far.
You guys mentioned the lifestyle. What's different about NC State versus maybe some of the other places you've visited or just places you've heard of?
Well, I mean, I think our zero tolerance policy is unique. I know that some other schools don't have that, but I think it works well for us just because of where we started. Going into Pat Pop's kind of, his era, there was a lot of turnover from the team. He wanted a certain lifestyle, and, before he got there, it wasn't that. And so he needed to make some drastic changes. And, that meant a really long and hard preseason. And, thankfully it's died down a little bit since then. And we're not doing, 8-week preseasons and run on the track 3 times a week. But, it was pretty crazy once you first got there. And I think just that kind of mentality of working really hard and staying out of the frat houses, I think has gotten us, to a really disciplined approach. And some people, it's not for them. And they're really upfront about that in the recruiting process. And, straight edge guys that wanted to be a part of something like that. And, we don't mind working hard and doing the right things. And, if you're not doing the right things, then, you're going to get called out on it. And I think we're at a spot with our team where we can kind of, self-regulate it. And, I think that goes across all parts of, academics, the way you're eating and the way you're training. I think we expect everybody to be at a high level, and I think that's what you get at NC State.
Yeah, I think with the lifestyle, it's unique for our program. Like Hayden said, it's kind of rare for a program to have that. But I think that's where a lot of success has come from with this team and the past few years. So you've seen NC State, shoot up the charts and be a powerhouse. And that was, that's part of the reason that I was so attracted to NC State, is because the message from the coaches and Coach Pat was that, we're going to win and we're going to do it the right way. And, I think that's what it's about. And I think there's lots of instances where, really great wrestlers, they really good come out of high school and, may not live the best lifestyle and, might not reach the goals they set out for themselves. And it's never something that I wanted for myself. And I'm pretty passionate about it. So I think doing the right thing is really important. And I know here at NC State that we're going to do the right things and it's going to pay off.
So Hayden, I'll turn to you first. Growing up and wrestling and being on the same team with your brother and in high school at Mifflin County, did you ever have in your mind like that you'd want to wrestle in college together? Because you guys both just talked about it, how it wasn't, and Trent alluded to it, that his recruiting process was a little bit different. But in the back of your mind, was it always there, like how cool that would have been to been college teammates as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I think in high school we found a lot of success together, and one was just because we were training partners, and we made each other better. We were around a good group of guys at Mifflin County High School, and the other thing, we just had a lot of fun together. We work really well together, and we have the same kind of sense of humor, and at the end of it, we're best friends. So, it was really, important for me to have him down here. And, I didn't make a huge sell on it just because I wanted him to figure it out for himself, how great this place is. But, no, it was challenging at times because I knew in his recruiting process, I wanted him here real bad. And he had some real blue chip schools after them. So, the pressure was on, but, thankfully he made his way here, and, we've been doing really well this year together.
So you talked about like successes making each other better, and training together as well, making each other better. Does that make you guys competitive with one another in a sense where, it's important for one of you to be better than the other, or do you genuinely enjoy sharing each other's successes because the process happens as a result of you guys working together?
We're definitely competitive, especially when it comes to training. I think, especially in high school when we were much closer in weight, I think no matter what we did, we were constantly looking over each other's shoulders to see who was in first place. Like when it comes to sprints or, wrestling live with each other or playing dodgeball, I think that was always important to us. And this because it was like that growing up, you know what I mean? Like we grew up with another older brother and our younger sister, and it seems like everything we did was turned into competition. But I mean, the training room, there were some times where things got a little bit out of hand. I think as always happens with brothers who are training together. I think probably the best example of that, our coach came up with some drill for some reason where one person, all they had to do was just hold the other guy up against the wall and not let them off of it. So it was like you started out an underhook or you pinned them up against the wall and you had to get off the wall. And I remember I had Trent up against the wall, and for some reason he just couldn't get off, and it just ended up in just basically fist flying until he got off. And then our coach looked at us and said, "All right, we're never doing this drill ever again."
Trent, can you give us your account of how that happened?
Yeah, no, it's pretty spot on. I mean, my freshman and sophomore year, I I was lucky enough to have Hayden in the room, and I think it didn't really occur to me until after he left for college, how fortunate I was to have him in the room because, we probably practiced 95% of the days in there, and I don't know if I won any of the days, but I know I got a lot better from it. And, little stories like that are really funny to look back on now, but it really wasn't funny for me during the time. I know that. But no, it was great. I think my freshman and sophomore year, I grew a lot, wrestling-wise and maturity-wise, just being around Hayden. And, he had other older guys on the team that were serious about the sport. And, it's easy to form goals that are really big whenever you're around guys like Hayden that, they're shooting for being number one in the country. And, when I saw him have that success early on in my high school career, I knew that was something that I wanted. And that kind of carried over in my mentality sort of junior and senior year. I wanted to dominate and, I wanted to be number one in the country. So, I think being able to train with him and, early on in high school really paid, it really paid off for me later on in high school where I found more of my success.
So you talked about that time and that one story in high school. Like, what about growing up, Nick, when you guys were younger and in youth wrestling? Got any good stories from there? Hayden, you want to give us any dirt, anything that happened? Were there any good scraps in the living room? Any trips to the ER?
Well, it wasn't just the practice. When we actually wrestled each other in competitive matches too. Like that was one thing our dad was never big on, was if we ended up having to wrestle each other in a tournament, we were going to do it. Like, he wasn't big on having one person forfeit, like, and alternate who got the win. If we were lined up in a bracket, we wrestled. And so what would happen whenever we would wrestle is my dad would go to Trent's corner and root for him and usually tell the ref to spot him a point or something like that. And so we would just wrestle at tournaments, and I would win most of the time just because I was older. And,
what was that, Hayden?
Trent chimed in that I won all the time, which is true. But so we probably wrestled, I don't know, probably 4 or 5 different times in youth wrestling, and maybe a couple times in high school too. But for us, I think it was like when we went out to the mat, it was like, all right, we're not really, we're just competitors. We didn't really think about it. And I think that's what made us so special growing up, is we basically threw away the fact that we were brothers whenever we would compete against each other. And I know, like, a neighborhood wise, playing games, it would be Trent and my older brother, and it would be me and one of the neighborhood kids playing like not two-hand touch tackle football, like 2v2. And it would always end in either me going down to the house or Trent going down to the house with tears in our eyes, just because either Heath beat me up or I beat Trent up, or somewhere in between the line something happened. So there's plenty of stories like that. I think our parents were pretty much scared to take us anywhere because it would end up in all-out brawl. Probably the most notorious one was we were at church one day, and the pastor was giving a children's message, and next thing you know, just a wrestling match broke out right among the church. And my dad came down the aisle and picked up me under his right arm and Trent under his left arm and stormed us out of the room. So, I think growing up it was always like that, but now it's much more subdued, and Trent's got about 25 pounds on me now, so I kind of pick my fights wisely.
Good stuff. Nothing like a wrestling match breaking out in the middle of mass to keep things exciting.
So I'll take this next question. First for Trent, you were a guy that always competed in high school. You would double up at Fargo. You'd be on the junior duels teams. I kind of said the same thing to Sammy Sasso when we had him on. It seemed like you guys were wrestling at every big event. Do you ever feel burned out, or do you just constantly have that itch? And, do you miss that itch this year, maybe not having a real postseason?
No, I never really burned out, I would say. I think there were some times where I would, maybe get a little sick of it, need a little bit of break, but I always found that when I would take breaks, I'd be about 3 days in, and I'd have to get on the mat or do something because just too much energy cooped up in me. But I think it's pretty unique for, the time period now is we can wrestle folk style during the season, and then we have a good system of freestyle and Greco that we could wrestle in the off season. So it never really got old. It always changed up, and it was always fun. But yeah, no, I think it also helps because I didn't play any other sports in high school. I stopped playing football and baseball after 9th grade. So, I knew if I was going to, be elite at the highest level in wrestling, I was going to have to do it all year long. And I was committed to that, and I always found fun in it. And I really enjoyed, all the opportunities I had to go across the country and compete at the highest level, whether that was Fargo or junior duels or even the state tournament was always, it's one of the toughest tournaments of the season. So, I always had a lot of fun and, just cherish those opportunities and make the most out of it while you can.
Hayden, have you ever felt like you needed a break, or has a coach ever told you to tone it down and kind of forbid you from getting on the mats for a while?
Yeah, I've actually been told that numerous times since I've been here. I think the first time where I had a point where I just felt like I was trying to turn the corner, but I just was working just too hard and never took time off. I think it was after the NCAA's last year. I just never took a break, and I maybe took 2 days off after Cleveland, but then I just went back into the room and wanted to just prepare for the U.S. Open. And I just had kind of revenge on my mind. I was still a little sour after losing in the finals, and I just wanted to get into the freestyle season. And that was probably just not a good decision at the time because my body needed a break. And I actually was 4 or 5 days out from the U.S. Open, and the coaches really didn't even want me to wrestle there. They were, kind of worried about where I was and, how my training has gone. And, I actually called my dad, and I really wasn't sure what to do, but he convinced me to wrestle at the U.S. Open that spring just because I've never been somebody to back down from a challenge. And, I committed to going there, and, people thought I was going to go to the U.S. Open and wrestle, and he basically convinced me that, you've been competing all your life, and he didn't really care if I went there and lost to whoever I was wrestling. And I think that moment for me was huge in my career. And after that I definitely took a break, but I think I also had a rough stretch probably right after I got back from U23 Worlds this year, where I just spent so much time preparing for that tournament, and I went there and I got hurt a little bit, and the matches didn't go the way I planned, and I got back, and next thing you know, I was just right into the thick of the season. I had to wrestle 2 top 10 guys within the next 2 weeks, and for me, that was probably a time where I probably should have took some time off, but I knew that a part of me is just going and going and going and not stopping, and so I went through it, and I took some losses, and then finally at Christmas break, Pat Pop sat me down and was like, listen, man, you need to not go on the mats. And I went 6 days without wrestling on the mat, and that was probably one of the hardest things I've ever done. Like Trent said earlier, it's like you feel this itch and you feel like you need to go there. But for me, that was probably the best thing, and that was one of the most influential conversations I've ever had with a coach, was him just sitting me down and telling me to chill out. Because I needed to do that because my wrestling wasn't as good as it should be, and I needed to head into the new year with some momentum and to be fresh. And I've been feeling good ever since that.
That kind of leads me to my next question. So, U23 is obviously you don't get what you want, but you wrestle pretty well from my account, right? You wrestle Bayev or Bave from Russia, who's one of the top guys in the world. You wrestle him nipped and tuck, and then, like you said, you come back and lose to a couple guys that you've beaten before. I mean, did you learn a lesson there of when to listen to your body, and now you know what it feels like to be burned out, or what did you pick up from that?
Yeah, I think I was so worried about because to hear from my teammates, and I prepared so much for that U23 Worlds that when I was in that repechage match and my knee kind of tweaked, and I didn't have it in the second period, I kind of came back and was like, all right, well, I've got all season to kind of right that wrong, when I really should have just, probably taken a few weeks off and just chilled out. But I mean, I went and lost those matches, and I don't regret doing that. I don't regret showing up and wrestling. That's kind of always who I've been. And so, yeah, it might hurt me, when it comes like seating time, but I've never really cared about things like that. So, I probably should have listened to my body a little bit better, but I took advantage of those losses and kind of figured out the things that I need to do with my body and, the way I needed to improve on my wrestling game. So, it was that trip was a win in itself, even though at the time it didn't seem like it.
I'll add something to that, along with the previous question you asked about just traveling to a lot of different places and, really putting it on the line so much. I think we were really lucky to have a support system and coaches early on that really stressed the fact that if you don't go and compete and take some L's and take some losses, you're never really going to get better. And I think that's one thing that definitely helped me. I know it helped Hayden a lot in high school and going into college was, going to these tournaments and taking hard losses and taking tough lumps and, sitting back and looking at yourself in the mirror and asking yourself, who do you want to be? How do you want to change it? And I think that's probably one of the biggest reasons or, factors that improved my wrestling game throughout my high school career. And I know it helped Hayden a lot because, we go to some of these tournaments and, maybe losing somebody we shouldn't have. And, knowing at the end of the day it was only going to make us better, I think really helped us a lot. And it's really inspiring to me to, when you watch your brother go through these things or, you go to the NCAA tournament, you get second at the U.S. Open, you finally break through, win a world team spot there at the U23 World Team Trials. And it's those kind of things that are really inspiring to me because that at the end of the day, those losses make you better, and that's what drives us to be better competitors and better winners at the end of the day.
Trent, I want to switch gears a little bit and ask. I want to get both your impressions, but yours first. What are your thoughts on guys consistently defaulting out, sitting out dual meets? It seems like it's becoming an epidemic, and people are getting really upset about it. And from one hand, I get the coach's perspective of protecting your guy, quote unquote, if he's not feeling his best, but it seems like it's getting a little bit out of hand. I mean, what do you guys think about that? I just asked because you mentioned laying it on the line.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not in a position to comment on, somebody specifically if they sat out a dual meet or their coach had them sit out a dual meet. I think it's a really long wrestling season. And when you think about it, you're training all year long. You're at dual meets from, November to March, and you're wrestling every day of the week. So, I'm sure people are getting hurt and people are getting sick. So, I never feel like anger to people that sit out in the dual meet or, maybe duck somebody, but I know it's not who I am. I know it's not something that me or Hayden would probably ever wish to do. But I think there's circumstances where guys are legitimately hurt, and if you can't wrestle, then you can't wrestle. It's a tough sport. But I know at the end of the day, if I have an opportunity to compete, especially at a high level, I'm gonna do whatever I can to be on the mat and wrestle for my team.
Yeah, I think Trent had a good answer to that. And one, it's just a lot of it's not up to the wrestlers either. I think people forget that. And although we're guys that really want to wrestle, and if we're not wrestling in a dual meet, then something's probably wrong. But there's nothing that penalizes them for doing it. Like if you're going to sit out a dual meet, like it's not a big deal. And so it might be taking advantage of the system, but the system's wrong in itself. If that's happening, it's kind of like in the sport of golf when people, they say they're on a shot clock. They say they're worried about the pace of play, but they don't enforce anything. So it's like, you can spend, 3 minutes lining up a putt if you want. And although it's like kind of apples and oranges, compare that to wrestling, but, people are getting genuinely hurt. And like Trent said, you don't want to talk on specifics because you have no idea. And it's not like in pro sports where they release medical information. So until like that happens, I really don't think there should be a general gripe with guys sitting out dual meets just because, one, it's not usually up to them, and sometimes it's the system failing them where coaches would rather have them sit out than wrestle. because if you go out there and wrestle hurt and you take a loss, then it really does more to damage you than it would be if you just sat out. And so, the system's a little bit flawed, and, it's a really hard sport. So, I don't think there's a whole lot that can be done about it now.
No, that's a good answer. With the system, people are playing by the rules, right? So if they're not breaking any rules, there's nothing to really complain about. As dissatisfying as it might be for the fans, myself included. Going back, I think I mentioned this to you guys off air, but both you guys have pretty good personalities on Twitter. You always seem to be making jokes. I don't know if myself or most of the public always get all of them because they seem like they're inside jokes. But, has that guy ever gotten you guys in trouble? Do most of your teammates just laugh at it, or have you ever offended anyone?
No, I think most of the stuff that we tweet is just very like a personal joke, but we make sure that none of it's inappropriate or anything like that. We keep a really clean profile, just because we know the kind of ramifications that can have. But I think with our Twitter profiles in general are mostly jokes where probably a short size of the population understand, and that's what we're kind of aiming for. I guess, for example, at one point, both of our profile pictures were characters from the Mummy series. I was Brendan Fraser as Rick O'Connell, and he was Ardith Bay. And it's a very just kind of bad movie series, but that's the kind of stuff that we find funny, and we'll probably watch that movie 3 or 4 times in a 2-month span and make jokes about that. And, obviously that we have the hoagie meetings and congregations of people that enjoy that. And so there's just a couple of ongoing jokes that we've probably beat to death. And I know our dad gets on us about doing that at times, where we'll tweet stuff out and he'll just be like, why are you tweeting that out? Because there's nobody that finds that funny except for you guys, but you do it anyways. And so I think that we've done a good job at catering to the 2% out there who find stuff funny.
Personally, I think it's great. The jokes, whether I get them or not, it just kind of gives a glimpse of your personality, and that you're just two down to earth brothers having fun in everything you do. So that's my 2 cents. I think it's hilarious. So, Pop Hidlay, cut him some slack.
Yeah, he's got a good Twitter follow too. He mostly retweets the 70s tour stuff. So, if you're interested in that kind of thing, you can give him a follow too.
Maybe I have to give him a follow, troll him a little bit, maybe.
Yeah, that'd be a good idea.
I don't want him to carry me out of church under one arm, though, so I might not troll him too much.
No, he actually will take you on. He's a very scary person. I think intimidating to meet him. He's got a good frame on him, but really funny guy as well.
Yeah, I'll never forget when you beat Deacon for the trials, and just seeing this guy going nuts in the stands. I'm like, that has to be a family member. I'm assuming it was your dad, right?
That's something that I think if you look back at the takedown, they've got him lined up perfectly, and I believe he's in a stance for the last 10 seconds or so, and he basically cleared out an entire section, I think, during that match. There's nobody sitting near him, so I think that kind of showed who he was rooting for.
I think it's kind of interesting. It's awesome, really, to see. We always know when we're gonna have a dogfight match, the first people we're probably gonna hear is either gonna be my mom or my dad from the stand. So you can always count on my mom either yelling at the ref or just maybe even getting a fight with somebody in the stand. I think we have a lot of funny stories from just youth wrestling to middle school wrestling to high school wrestling of just the experiences from all these tournaments, because they really took us all over the country, and you're bound to have some good stories from that.
Yeah, I wanted to pipe in and tell one story about my dad. This was very early in my career. I was at the PJW state tournament in Johnstown. I was probably 8 years old at the time, and I was in the PJW semifinals, and my dad was in the corner recording a match on his camcorder, and he was behind these 2 chairs, and I was on top with probably 15 seconds left. and I got a late tilt to win the match and send me in the state finals. And my dad jumped up in the air and came down and smashed his face up against these chairs, broke his nose, had like 12 stitches on the day of PJW state. They took him out on a stretcher because he was so embarrassed about the way his face looked, because he was just bleeding everywhere. It looked like he got into a fight with like the other coach. And like, I didn't really see any of this happen because he wanted to be far away from the arena as he could. And I had people going up to me like, "Did your dad get into a fight with the other guy's dad?" I was like, "No, it didn't happen." So my dad got stitched up and came back later that night for the state finals.
So you talked about your mom as well. Like, did you have nowhere to run when things got tough? It sounds like you got no sympathy from either one parent. Like you had nowhere to turn when you were you had a tough one.
I don't know. I think we've been blessed to the fact that we know that they're going to hold us accountable for what we know we want and what we're going for, and they're going to be hard on us. But at the same time, they're really supportive, and they're the first people to tell us they love us after a tough loss, and just really supportive, and really just thankful for all the support and love they've given us, and it puts into perspective how lucky we are to have parents and family in general, for that matter. Just really lucky to have them, but yeah, they're definitely hard, but always good intention.
All right, guys, so let's change gears. Let's talk about NC State for a second. I'll go to you first, Trent. What does NC State have to do, based upon where you're at now, to become a national championship team? Can it happen before you graduate?
Yeah, I think it's absolute. I think it can happen. I think it will happen. I think with the class that Hayden came in with, the guys that were on the team when he came in here, the class I came in with, and the classes that are coming in, I think it's absolutely going to happen for us. I think it's going to be a matter of, just being together as a team. I know just in this past week and a half, we've probably gotten closer as a team than we had the whole year. And I think that speaks volumes about, the team chemistry that we have. And I think that's going to be the biggest propeller to us to a NCAA team title in March. Everyone coming together and people find the right weight class where they can win a title. And I think at the end of the day, in this era, you need, 2 or 3 champs and maybe 8 All-Americans to win NCAA title, and I think we can do that. When I look at our lineup, you got guys that have already proved themselves at the NCAA tournament, like Tariq Wilson, Hayden, Nick Ryan is, just finished second at the Final X. So we have winners on our team, and I know there's hungry guys in my freshman class that want to win as well. So I think don't be surprised if we make a run at it next year. That's the reason I came here, because I'm sore on the fact that we're going to win an NCAA title, and I really honestly believe that, and I know that everybody on the team believes that. So it's just going to be a matter of us, competing hard and, being winners.
And staying with sorta NC State, you guys came from North Central Pennsylvania, Lewistown, and you go to school in Raleigh, North Carolina right now. Besides the weather, what's the biggest difference between the two places?
Well, I think the size of the two is probably the biggest thing for me. I know growing up, I was always a small town kid, and I loved the fact that I knew just about everybody, and I knew everybody that I went to school with, and everybody knew me, and I grew up playing baseball, football against the same group of guys, and our wrestling team. I had the same wrestling coach on my first day of elementary wrestling as I did the last day of my high school career. And just sort of that familiarity among the community was huge for me. And then I go down to Raleigh, where this place is like an actual city, and I was never used to that. I really never got used to any kind of traffic growing up at home, but I think it was a culture shock at first, but then I got to see all that this city has to offer, and pretty much any kind of food you want, you can go and get, which is a plus. you meet all kinds of new people. And I think even on our team, it's just a very diverse group of guys. I think growing up in small town Pennsylvania, you get to know a pretty, similar subset of the population. And then you go down to North Carolina with a group of guys that live completely different lives up to that point. And so that's really cool for me. I know that a lot of guys on our team like that. We're of all different backgrounds and stories, and we all enjoy that. So I think that kind of diversity was huge for me. I got to see everybody's how they grew up and their stories was pretty cool.
Trent, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, Hayden pretty much said everything. You go from being in Mifflin County, a small, pretty rural area in Pennsylvania, to a pretty large and growing city in Raleigh. And I think it's cool to experience that. I think some people go their whole lives and kind of stay in one area because of circumstances. But I think we've both been lucky enough to branch out a little bit and get the opportunity to live in a new state and a new area. And, like he said, a lot of good food down here. I've been taking advantage of that. This is my redshirt year. But it's great. I've loved Raleigh so far. Pretty much anything you want or you need, you can get it. And it's cool because the way the campus is set up is the campus is not directly in the city, but you can get to the city in, 5 or 10 minute drive. And it's just really convenient, and I love it so far. It's a great place.
So you guys touched on a lot of it, but is there anything you missed? Like, think about what your pitch would be to come to NC State. I know you talked about it ad nauseum, but anything else you're telling a blue chip recruit or a kid you want to get on campus about how great it is? Feel free to get it out there now for our millions and millions of listeners.
Well, I think we do a really good job at NC State among the wrestling team of conveying the message of what it's really like here. And as soon as you walk through the doors of Weisinger Brown wrestling facility, you're going to, be greeted by 20 guys, probably sweaty after workout, who are going to shake your hand and shake your parents' hand and tell them how happy they are that they're here and that you're considering NC State. And as soon as you get here, it's a very unique situation because, one, if you want to go to a great wrestling school, you probably have to go somewhere cold. You probably have to go somewhere in the Midwest or something like that. Or, you can come to NC State and get a new kind of outlook on life and live a different lifestyle for 4 to 5 years. And, we do a lot of great things at NC State, and I think the opportunities right after wrestling are one of them. We have a really great regional training center. If you're a big freestyle guy and you want to, branch out and do that part of your career, then we have your option here because, we have guys like Nick Dowski that are staying here. Mike Mock is here. Tommy Gant, Timmy McCall, and among others that train here. And so there's a really great situation for training, obviously. And being able to live in Raleigh where you're, at 2 hours from the beach, there's a lot of things outside of wrestling that's a lot of fun. So we kind of sell that. But, the most important thing is selling pack mentality, and that's the kind of lifestyle that we live and, how we train. And I think it's a very, small percentage of the elite, that come through because of that. I believe that's what made us so great is able to kind of pick out, the guy who really going to train hard and really want to take this serious. That's kind of what our team's compromised of now. And, the coaches do hard work to find those guys, but, they're willing to put in the extra work to get the right guys here.
Yeah, I think being able to go through, 2.5 years of the recruiting process, I was lucky enough to, have the opportunity to meet almost every school I was interested in, whether that was on the East Coast or the Midwest or the South or wherever. I pretty much talked to all the big schools, and I think going through that, it was clear the different message that NC State was sending, and that message that I got has completely held true since I've been here. Everything that the coaches told me that would happen is happening. And I'm really looking forward to, seeing the rest of the school that they preach to me, come to fruition. And And I'm just, I couldn't be more excited to be a part of this program. And I think, we have recruits here. I would like to, make it a point to talk to them, just to, let them know if you want to train really, really hard and you want to win an NCAA title and you want to graduate with a 4.0 and get a great degree, this is the place. And the other aspect of NC State that also sold me is that was a little different from every other school I got recruited by, was that not only are you coming here to become the best wrestler you can or, get a great degree, they're going to shape you into a great person to, live the rest of your life with. And I think that's something that separates NC State with a lot of other programs, is that what we do in this program sets you up for success in all aspects of life, whether that's being a good parent or just a good family member or working hard at your job. You're going to have the tools necessary to be successful in anything you do.
Rob, I'm going to speak for both of us here. Learning about the pack mentality and having you guys on has been nothing short of phenomenal. And we really appreciate, thank you again, the time you took out to sit down and talk with us and tell us about, a little bit about life, a little bit about growing up, a little bit about wrestling, and of course the pack mentality and what Coach Pop and his staff are doing down there in Raleigh. And I'll say this: I'm proud you guys are PA guys and representing the state and doing things on big stage, and wish you nothing but the best this season and of course moving forward, and really hope you guys get those individual national championships and a team one for that too, because you guys are doing everything the right way.
Hey, thanks a lot for having us on. It's very rare that we get to do something like this, and people can get to know who we are, but we really enjoyed our time.
Good, we're glad. Yeah,
thanks so much, guys.
Yeah. Keep the jokes coming on Twitter too. And like I said, there are those out there that aren't.
We'll make sure.
Yep, and those that aren't following them, give them a follow. It takes all 2 seconds, and like I said, they're worth it. They might just make your day a little bit better. Follow Pop Hidlay as well. He apparently seems to be.
Yep, he's at Mark Hidlay.
At Mark Hidlay.
Yep.
You should ask him how many followers he has tonight. Ask him how many followers he has tonight and see if that goes up at all after the podcast drops.
All right, we will.
All right, guys, again, good luck and take care. Have a great night. That will wrap it up for another week here in the open room with Rob and Joe. Thanks for tuning in, and as always, visit PAPowerWrestling.com for all your wrestling needs. Follow us on Twitter at PAPowerWrestle. Give us a thumbs up on Facebook, and check us out on Instagram. Don't forget, fans, you can subscribe to PA Power Podcasts on iTunes and listen to all 3 shows on Spotify. If you want to send any suggestions or questions for the show, email us at collegetalk@PAPowerWrestling.com.